there are so many non-state actors and rogue elements that have taken the whole agitation from what it was centered on and making it a totally different thing right now. So I don't know to what extent Nnamdi Kanu controls those rogue elements and non-state actors that have gotten involved. But I do know that he is a central part of providing solution to that problem, because majority of the young people in the Southeast listen to him more than they even listen to the state governors and the politicians.
Noam Chomsky, who is an American professor and public intellectual, once said, "Everyone's worried about stopping terrorism. Well, there's really an easy way. Stop participating in it." That's a good one. All right, we take our next quote, and this one is from George Walker Bush, who is an American politician, served as the 43rd president of the United States from 2001 to 2009, and he once said, "One of the hardest parts of my job is to connect Iraq to the war on terror." Like they always say, don't envy any leader, president, because they've got loads of activities caught up for them or cut out for them. All right, so let's see how this goes relates to what we'll be discussing today. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Captain's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Ojin. Now, on the show today, we will turn our attention to the insecurity going on in the southeastern part of the country, which has become a serious and hydra-headed challenge that is really affecting every one of us, regardless of wherever you come from, who you are. Southeastern security should be a concern to you, because like they say, insecurity in one place is insecurity in almost everywhere. So we'll turn attention to southeastern insecurity. We'll also look at the mood of the regions, that's the southeastern regions, and then we'll talk about the Nnamdi Kanu's arrest and continuous incarceration, detention, and then we'll also talk about the Simon Ekpa from in Finland, and what his factor and what he has got to do with all of this and insecurity that we'll talk about. And then we'll also talk about the Monday sit-at-home order in the southeastern part of the country, the lasting solutions and the solutions that have been preferred by the southeastern governors and their leaders. And then we'll see how we can get from history and then look at the present and the future and prefer solutions, at least lasting solutions that could help in solving this anomaly. With my guest on the show today, he is Captain Bishop Johnson, U.S. Army retired and national security and military strategist. So we'll start this conversation after you see this montage and after this time out. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Captain's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we'll go straight to our conversation for today. And our guest is Captain Bishop Johnson, U.S. Army retired and national military and security strategist. It's great to have you on the show today again. Thank you very much, Annabelle. Good morning. Good morning to you. How you been doing? Awesome. And you? Very well. Okay. I love the way you dropped your cap. Looks nice on you. I'm learning. Thank you. All right, let's go straight to our conversation for today. Now, let's start with the southeast insecurity. As we go straight to southeastern part of the country, we'll begin with this regular Monday sit-at-home order, and then which actually started like, okay, we thought it was going to phase off at some point. It was going to die, fade away, but then it just looks like where you have a serpent, you put it in a room in the night and then leave it there till the next morning it grows to become a dragon, now spits fire, and now it's uncontrollable. So at what point did the southeastern governors or leaders or the southeastern people let their guards down? Well, I think if we say southeastern governors or southeastern people, we'll be missing the point.
before you solve the problem of today, you have to look at the history of yesterday. We have to go back to how we got to where we are today now.
Okay.
Prior to 2015, most Nigerians know, you and I know, Southeast was the most peaceful geopolitical zone in this country.
Most definitely.
Very peaceful, very stable. Even when there were insecurity problems in other regions of the country, Southeast was almost isolated from those problems. How did we get to where we are today? Because we can't solve the problem of today if we don't go back to where we started. In 2015, there was a very divisive election in which President Muhammad Buhari won. There is no election that everybody in the country will support one particular candidate. Any election in which 100% of the electors voted for you, that election is a sham. It cannot be a credible election. But after election, responsibility of leadership requires that the first thing you do as somebody who has won is to be magnanimous in your victory and take steps to heal the wounds of divide of the election. I read to you what President Barack Obama said when he won a similar, because elections all over the globe are very divisive. Not just in Nigeria here.
Okay.
But leaders, as soon as they emerge, as soon as they are blessed, because it's blessing, you're not the only one in the country. As soon as you win, you have to try and bring back those that may not have voted for you, your position. Look at what Barack Obama said in 2008 after he won a very divisive election against late Senator John McCain. He said, "While the Democratic Party has won a great victory tonight, we do so with a measure of humility and determination to heal the divides that have held back our progress. As Lincoln said to a nation far more divided than ours, we are not enemies, but friends. Though passion may have strength, it must not break our bonds of affection. And to those Americans," very, very important, very key here, "and to those Americans whose support I have yet to earn, I may not have won your vote, but I hear your voices. I need your help, and I will be your president too." That is what you do, right? But instead, what happened was that the former president went on a fishing expedition, seeking vendetta even where there was none. There was one famous interview he held overseas where he talked about 97% and 5%. 5%. And how those who did not support him is not going to do as much for them as for those who supported him. And it was not only by his words, in fact, even his actions spoke to that, because he began these nepotistic appointments that were very much lopsided. And so that now raised the consciousness of Southeasterners that, look, maybe we are not part of this country, which we have spent years investing in, because the Southeast has invested in every part of this country more than any other people in this country.
Why do you say so?
There is nowhere in Nigeria where you don't have Igbos living there. They made it their permanent home. In fact, most of them were even born there. They speak those languages. Such is not the case with other ethnic groups in this, coming to the Southeast to invest. And it's not the fault of Southeasterners that people don't want to leave their comfort zones to come and invest in the Southeast.
But then you have Northerners who are in the eastern part of the country.
I mean, what is the percentage? What is the population? If you compare it to Southeasterners that live elsewhere in Nigeria, who are invested in everywhere in Nigeria. In northern Nigeria, Southeastern investment is more than 19 trillion naira. And so that arose the consciousness of the Southeasterners, and now exacerbated what has been already on the background for all these years, this feeling of marginalization and exclusion from national issues. And that was where Nnamdi Kanu now emerged. And they filled a vacuum that was existing. And even before then, Nnamdi Kanu was one little unknown individual that was probably ranting in the background and making all those bombastic rhetoric that did not amount to anything. Nobody knew him until the federal government now decided to arrest him. When they arrested him, they took him from a little unknown person that very few people were listening to, and they made him a hero overnight with massive following. He began to garner sympathy from the youths in the area. And this is how people like Simon Ekpa and the rest of them now emerge. And so for us to be able to deal with the problem, we have to go back to the root cause of it.
So are you saying that all of this started from that 2015 election? From that 2015
election. Before then, the region was very peaceful. Nobody was fighting anybody. There was nothing like a non-government. There was no insecurity in the Southeast. You will only have a few armed robbery or kidnapping cases, which is everywhere around the globe. There is no society in the world today where you have absolute security. What you have is relative security everywhere around the world, including the United States. You've had cases of mass shootings and all that stuff. So you're not going to get 100% security anywhere. And so that was where this whole problem started. And so for us to address it, we have to go back to that 2015. And I prefer three-part solutions to this problem.
Okay, so we will get to the solution part of all of this. But now let's still dive right in with regards to the history where you talked about Nnamdi Kanu, where he was not really known, and then all of a sudden he started to garner sympathy from the youth and other people. But then we know that this Biafra separatist movement has been there over time. Even a lot of people have been clamoring for, we want to go to our own country, we want to get our own Biafra and all of that, since even the time of Chukwu Emeka Ojukwu, God bless his soul. So does it actually mean that at some point they deviated from the main focus of that movement?
Well, there is very few countries in the world where people are not agitating for for independence, for self determination. If you go to Spain, the Barcelona part of it, people are agitating for their own self-determination. Even in the United States, people from California still see themselves as California Republic. Those from Texas, the same thing. In the United Kingdom, there was Brexit, where the Scottish people want to pull out of the UK. So it's a normal thing, but it does not translate to secession. Ojukwu had said it, that we once fought a civil war, that there will be no need for another one, and that Biafra is a thing of the mind. And when you talk about Biafra is not just Southeast. It's quite unfortunate how the situation has been turned into a Southeast affair. Biafra is about the old Eastern Nigeria, which is comprised of the current Southeast, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, River State, and Bayelsa State. It's not about Southeast. And if you look at the war that led to this, the civil war, what led to the civil war that led to the situation that we find ourselves right now, that the Igbos are so marginalized and pushed to the margins of the society. The coup that started that civil war was not led by any Southeasterner. Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzogo, who led the coup, is from the present-day Delta State in the South. Check the records. It's not from the Southeast. But Southeast is bearing the brunt of that coup and all of its aftermaths. So that is the problem. So we have to address some of these issues. I've always stated in Nigeria that the problem we have is that we do everything haphazardly. We don't go into details to solve our problems. If you want to solve problems permanently, you You have to go to the root cause of it and address those root causes. And then you'll be able to get a lasting solution to the problem.
All right, now, even with regard to the fact that Nnamdi Kanu has garnered so much support, even more than he did, like before you said, when he was just here, there, and everywhere ranting. But now that he has garnered so much support and sympathy from people, don't you actually think, I hear people say that all of this southeastern insecurity will stop immediately they release Nnamdi Kanu from this continuous detention. But do you actually think that even if they release him today, that it will stop? Because I still feel like it has been infiltrated.
Sure. I don't know that releasing him will solve the problem completely and overnight. But releasing him is a part to the solution.
Oh, okay.
The reason why I said I don't know is because, like you rightly mentioned, that whole movement has been hijacked. There are so many non-state actors and rogue elements that have taken the whole agitation from what it was centered on and making it a totally different thing right now. So I don't know to what extent Nnamdi Kanu controls those rogue elements and non-state actors that have gotten involved. But I do know that he is a central part of providing solution to that problem, because majority of the young people in the Southeast listen to him more than they even listen to the governors and the politicians. And that's why I was alluding previously that as it stands right now, the governors are handicapped. They can't solve that problem. You
saw that they recently came together to when they went to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, saying that they want to solve this southeastern insecurity. How far so far? Do you think that they will make any headway at all?
Yeah, they can. It's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
But them alone can't solve it. You need the federal government intervention to be able to solve the problem, because there is just trust gap between the governed and the government. They don't trust government, particularly our governors. But before now, this is not the first time we've seen those kind of meetings. Those kind of meetings without an honest and determined effort by the federal government to solve the problem may not work. And solving the problem is not just only by use of brutal force, to suppress it, because that's what the use of brute force is going to do, is to suppress it. You suppress it, it will continue to build underneath, and eventually it will explode and we'll come back to where we were before the use of that brute force started. So there has to be, the solution has to be political, it has to be diplomatic, and yes, there must be security measures put in place if the problem will be solved.
All right, so I actually recently had a guest who said that with all what the southeastern governors are doing, that they are still not serious about solving this anomaly. According to him, he stated that all of this they are doing is just eye service. When they are ready to be united and not be divided at the same time, that they will definitely solve this issue. Do you actually agree?
First and foremost, the governors, as much as Nigerians want to say it, that governors are the chief security officers of their states, I agree. Constitutionally, they are. But in practice, they are not, because they don't control any of those apparatus of public security for them to deploy. The chief security officer of every part of this country is the president and commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's not the governors. The governors don't have, their own security outfit that they can utilize at any point in time. If they give instructions to those security agencies in their state, and the instruction is in conflict to what the federal government wants, those security agencies will defer to the center. They will not listen to the states. In areas where governors are chief security officers, they have security apparatus at their disposal that they control, that they can deploy at any point in time. Well, having said that, the solution to this problem is not just about security measures. There must be political, and there must be diplomatic. And part of the political solution is that this president has an ample opportunity. This is a new government. You can't judge him. I cannot judge him right now because they just started. So you have to give them some time to put their house in order. But this is an ample opportunity for him to make things right that were not made right before by doing some of the things that he has said he's going to do. He said he's going to have an all-inclusive government. He's going to build a unity government. And that all-inclusive government must include appointments that carries everybody along in key positions, not just fulfilling statutory requirements of the law. You know, each state a minister. That is not enough. Besides ministers, there are other important appointments in the country that he must make sure that every region is represented in those appointments.
So you think that because my fellow region or ethnicity or ethnic person was not included in an appointment, we have to go and agitate?
No.
Is that part of it?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you have to have an inclusive government. Our government must be reflective of our diversity. If you look at what Joe Biden is doing in the US, he's making sure that every aspect of America is part of the government. That's why he appointed the first black woman justice to the Supreme Court. That's why he made a gay American his Secretary of Transportation. Because that is the reality of America today. So all of those diversities must be part of the government. Your government, the moment somebody sees your government, they will see your country. And so that inclusive governance is very, very critical. It's important. Not only in appointment of ministers, but various other key positions. That's number one. Number two, in allocation of national resources. Every part of this country needs one project or the other. Make sure that all of them are getting what is due them in terms of infrastructural development. Because those are the things that affect the lives of ordinary people economically. If people are able to produce from their farms and they are unable to transport them from the farm to the market, you just made their life very much more difficult for them. And will lead to insecurity because economy and insecurity are interwoven. When people are happy, they are living good life, the last thing they want to do is to get involved in insecurity. And so if you want to solve this insecurity problem, you have to solve economic problem. And at the same time, if you want to solve economic problem, you have to solve insecurity problem. Because people can't invest in an atmosphere of lawlessness and chaos. So that is why they're both interwoven. And so that is part of the problem, part of the solution. And another thing is that this Nnamdi Kanu issue is an issue that has to be resolved. I appeal to the president to understudy the Nnamdi Kanu situation and find a way to release Nnamdi Kanu so that he can come and be part of the solution to the problem we have in the Southeast, because the Southeast is in a serious mess right now. Trillions of naira being lost with all these reckless, illegal, and useless sit-at-homes. It's a region where people have to go out on daily basis to eke out a living. And when you hinder the ability of people to engage in their day-to-day economic activities, you are putting them more and more into poverty. And when they are put more and more into poverty, you're creating space for insecurity. And that is why this president must look at the question of Nnamdi Kanu, resolve it, release him from prison, let him come and be a part of solution to the problem. Where the Southeast governors and leaders are going to get involved now is that they must be guarantor to the releasing of Nnamdi Kanu. That look, he cannot continue in the direction that they are going right now, because it is not favoring the Southeast people. If you are a freedom fighter, you're fighting for your people. Your ultimate objective must be the welfare of your people. If you're fighting for them and your activities is detrimental to their both economic, social, and political growth, you're not a good fighter. And so he must not go the direction that they are going right now. That is the political solution, right? The diplomatic solution is this. I don't know why up till now the federal government has not, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, reached out to Finnish authorities with respect to Simon Ekpa and have serious discussion with them. Say, look, your country cannot continue to be a sanctuary for this guy who sits in the comfort of Finland and issuing illegal and incessant sit-at-home orders that is wreaking havoc in the social fabric and its social and economic fabric of our country. You either have to deal with him there in Finland, or you hand him over to us so that we will deal with him to solve the problem that he is creating at home. He has dual citizenship, we understand that. So the same way the Finnish people can deal with him, Nigeria can also deal with him. If they don't want to deal with him or they can't deal with him, they should hand him over to Nigerian government so the Nigerian government can deal with him. That is the diplomatic angle to this problem, because we must end those sit-at-home orders. Those sit-at-home orders are killing our people. They do more harm than good to our people. It's not how you fight for your people.
Captain Johnson, you actually just brought out the next 5 questions I was going to ask in just a few seconds that you made that statement with regards to the political and the diplomatic.
Yes, and by the way, there's a security angle to it too. Okay,
so we'll take the security angle to it, but let's open up that political and diplomatic aspect of it. Now, you talked about the political part, but then now that you have, let's stay on this Simon Ekpa's issue, where you have someone in Finland and then making directives and orders, and we already know that he already has his book leakers here who do everything that he says, hook, line and sinker, and then he's there going about his own business, but they're stopping other people's business, and the most important day of the week on Mondays. But then now that you've talked about this diplomatic part and then the political part, we saw that the Enugu state governor recently monitored that people must go to their offices and the markets. How much will that even do in the long run?
I don't see how he's going to be successful in that. You can't force people to come out of their homes if they don't want to come out. If I own a business, I saw on the news where he said that any short this thing will be sealed, any unopened business will be sealed. You can't do that. If I don't want to go for my business today, it's none of your business. You can't force me to come out. You didn't, by the way, you did not invest in my business. I may choose to rest on Mondays. So I don't know how that is going to be successful. But what will be successful is appealing to our people to come out and go about their normal businesses.
But when they're scared for their lives?
But they can't do it, which is where I am going. They can't do it when their lives are at stake. And that will bring us to that security measures that I'm talking about.
Okay.
There must be large security presence in the Southeast.
Won't it look as if we are fighting a war?
Look, when you have a situation of chaos and breakdown of law and order, there must be security measures to restore law and order. And those security measures, yes, they are going to be inconveniencing, but they are necessary. They are necessary evil to restore law and order. There has to be checkpoints after checkpoints, kind of like what you saw in the Niger Delta during the militancy time, where to get into Port Harcourt was a problem. There were checkpoints with CCTV cameras that were monitored 24/7.
Captain Johnson, have you actually gone to the eastern part of the country and see how much the checkpoints we have now is far more than what we used to have when we were growing up and we all had to travel every December?
I travel every 2 months. In fact, in the Southeast, I stay 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes months. I go through those checkpoints. But what I'm telling you is that you have to have sufficient boots on the ground to be able to enforce the law and stop these sit-at-home enforcers from coming out to terrorize our people. Until we stop them and until we give people that sense of safety and security to their lives and property, whether there's a sit-at-home order or not, it will become a tradition that every Monday people will not want to venture out for fear of their lives. So that confidence must be restored in the people, and the only way to restore it is to use security measures. Unfortunately, sometimes they are inconveniencing, but they are necessary. And when I say security measures, it's not just using police, the army, the DSS. community policing is also part of it.
Okay.
There is in the Southeast, there is a town union association. Those town unions, we have to be brought to bear. Every town union must ensure that there is law and order within their domain. There is no town union that does PG that does not know the people that live in their community. But the reason why they have not been actively involved is because nobody has actually engaged them. And another reason is that if you engage them and there is a reprisal on their lives, there is no protection guarantee for them. And so we have to broaden, our strategy to include them while providing for their own safety as well, so that there isn't reprisal attacks on them when they get involved. Anambra State government is already doing that. They moved away from this issue of Ebubeagụ, because that Ebubeagụ, as far as he's concerned, is already, for all of his good intentions, but because he's been labeled as enemy of the agitation, anybody that comes out and say they are Ebubeagụ, even though you are there to do good, they will be seen as enemy.
All right.
So they have to do like what Professor Charles Soludo did in Anambra, in which they evolved what they call Anambra Vigilante Group. So all of the states have to have similar vigilante groups drawn from the various town unions, not on politics, and who should work in collaboration with security agencies, particularly in the area of provision of intelligence, credible intelligence that will help them lead to arrest and prosecution of these bad people that are terrorizing the region.
Because you mentioned the Ebubeagụ, just a question just came to my mind, but we'll definitely talk about that after this time out. So let's go on this quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Captain Bishop Johnson. See you after this time out. Join us again.
They were not burning down houses, kidnapping people and raping people.
But they were kidnapping.
They were kidnapping expatriates that worked in the oil sector that they perceived to be the perpetrators of the hardship in the Niger Delta.
But like I always say, evil is evil, whether black or white.
I agree with you, but there are lesser evils than the others.
Oh, really?
The bandits, what is the objective? What are they fighting for? I don't know. I have not come out with to know what is it that they are fighting for. They don't have any defined agenda. And who are the bandits?
So let me ask you again. Are you saying that this group are not criminals, while this other group are criminals?
Look, whether you like it or not, there is legitimate reason for people from the Niger Delta to agitate for more control of the resources from their place.
Did you say legitimate?
Very, very legitimate. In other countries where you have crude oil, the people control it. Their life is not the same as the life of the people in the Niger Delta. Go to Houston, Texas, where they have oil.
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join in the conversation. As our guest on the show today is Captain Bishop Johnson, U.S. Army retired and national military strategist, and we've been talking about Southeastern insecurity. All right, before you went on that break, you mentioned the Ebubeagụ, and then something just dropped on my mind. Let's dovetail a little and still talk about this Biafra agitation and Biafra movement. And I keep wondering, if we decide that, okay, yes, let's have our own country, our own place where we call just our own, and then we leave the a whole Nigeria, who then will be the president? Who then will be? Because when you talked about this Ebubeagụ, it just brought my mind back to all that happened during the establishment of Ebubeagụ. You have this one coming out to say that no, it has to be domiciled here, and all that argument that came forth, and then someone will just tell you that sometimes we Southeasterners, we are always united to be divided. So if we keep calling for Biafra, who then will lead? When the Rivers person will, the Ebonyi person will say, Imo person will tell you, what's Rivers person or Ebonyi person doing, calling himself a Southeasterner?
Well, I don't think that having our own country is necessary. I don't think we need it. I think we're better off in Nigeria based on our ways of living. we're mostly business people. We're merchants, traders. And you need that population. You need that Nigerian population. You're talking about over 200 million people. Do you know that if you're an Igbo person and you produce a product and you sell it, say, 500 naira to 1/4 of Nigerian population, do you know that you're a multi-millionaire?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get that if there is a small country called Biafra that is probably landlocked, because most times we don't have access to the water, to the ocean, unless you're able to convince people from across river, Akwa Ibom rivers, Bayelsa, that they are part of the Biafra. So it is not needed, it's not necessary. We will benefit more remaining in Nigeria, but a Nigeria that works for all of its people, irrespective of your tribe, your religion, your age, your sex, your gender, irrespective of all of that. A country that works for everyone, able, disabled, men, women, girls and boys, everybody. A restructured Nigeria in which there are few things for the center to do, which is concentration on protection of life, security, territorial integrity, international bilateral agreements, monetary policies and all of that stuff. And then you now allow the component units to deal more with those that has to do with economic activities and stuff like that. You will see that the country will do better. It has been experimented in this country before and it was successful. When you had the regions were all doing good, and they were all growing at their own pace. I think that is what is required in Nigeria. What is required in Nigeria is not to tear Nigeria into pieces.
True.
And let me say that, look, if you go through the countries that had asked for self-determination and they got some, they're not doing any better than they were doing when they were not. Look at the issue of South Sudan. Since the creation of that newest country on the planet, they've had no peace. They are battling amongst themselves, which is what may likely happen should we even get that Biafra. The internal rivalry amongst the people, the unhealthy competition may even collapse the country, and we even make people begin to wonder why the heck did we even leave Nigeria in the first place.
So you actually agree that there's that internal rivalry
there will
amongst OES members, and then in the night they are, please, to attend to Israel. There
will be. When you have plurality of opinions, everybody has their own opinion. Democracy is noisy and complicated. Because you are dealing with so many voices and so many opinions, so many interests, and everybody thinks that their own opinion and their interest is superior to that of the other person. So now how do you now reach a compromise? And that's what makes it difficult. And that's how countries end up in internal chaos. Just like the example that I gave you about South Sudan. And so it's better we're here in Nigeria, but a Nigeria that functions, a Nigeria that works, a Nigeria in which power is devolved to the state, just like we recently have seen. So that if you are a state and you are unable to generate, have 24 power supply in your country, in your state, businesses can migrate from your state to the neighboring state where they have steady power. So you have no other option than to make sure that you too provide 24-hour power supply to businesses and the residents in your state. There has to be healthy competition within the states. And you will see that Nigeria will flourish. We will achieve all of our potentials, because this country is a country that is endowed with so much potentials, both in terms of natural resources and the human beings. We have been unable, because of internal rivalry amongst the regions and the tribes and the religions, to be able to grow these potentials to their full God endowed. And that is what is keeping the country down. And by extension, that is what is creating the insecurity in the country, because people cannot find gainful employment. You go to university, you graduate, you can't find job anywhere. And then you resort to being political thugs and carrying weapons to be able to earn a living.
Now, are you ever going to get to that point where I remember those very good old days when we have to travel with our parents to the Southeast. Every December, everyone will come back home, and then we're always happy to go travel. But now, these days, the Gen Zs or the AI children, they don't even know their way home or to their ancestral land again. So, and their parents will just prefer, please don't even just bother talk about going home. So are we ever going to get to that point where it will be safe again for you to go to your own house and leave your door wide open for your brother, not a visitor? Anyone can come in again.
We're hopeful and optimistic. I am someone that like to be, hopeful, because let me tell you, why disappointment is finite, hope is infinite. Hope is that thing that keeps you living every day. So I am hopeful and optimistic that we'll get back to that period that you're talking about. I lived through that period. Every December, everybody from the Southeast is always excited to go back home. Because
wherever you are,
anywhere you are, all over the globe. When I was in the US, I used to be excited to return home, because this is a time of family reunion. All of family members that you have not seen at the, for the last 1 year, everybody will come home, everybody will reunite, everybody will see each other, because you never know when next you're going to see them again. So there's that excitement. So I am hoping, and if these people are listening and they're watching, if you adopt those measures that I have enumerated,
that's
earlier,
political, diplomatic, and
political, diplomatic, and security measures. If you adopt them and you deploy them, we will get to that place that you talked about. And before, let me quote President Barack Obama. He's one of my most favorite presidents because of his level of intellect. And so most time I quote him, I go through every of his speeches, because there's always wisdom in the things that he says. Look at what Barack Obama said in that same speech after he won the 2008 presidential election. And this is what he said. He said, the road ahead will be long. Our climb will be steep. We may not get there in 1 year or even one term. But America, I have never been more hopeful than I am tonight that we will get there. I promise you, we as a people will get there. There will be setbacks and false starts. There are many who won't agree with every decision or policy I make as a president. We know that government can't solve every problem, but I will always be honest with you about the challenges we face. I will listen to you, especially when we disagree. And above all, I will ask you to join in the work of remaking this nation the only way it's been done in America for 221 years, block by block, brick by brick, callous hand by callous hand. This is a leader. So if we do those, I'm not saying that they will be easy. There is no overnight solution to some of all these complicated problems. I will not be here to simplify what is already a complicated situation. It will be hard, it will be difficult, but they are not insurmountable. We can surmount them if we take some of those measures that I have already alluded to earlier in the course of this conversation. If we take those steps, we will get to those places. It may not be maybe in one term of President Tinubu's presidency. It may not be if he's blessed and lucky, he has a second term, and whoever it is, it will be difficult. But if you remain consistent and persistent, we'll get to that.
All right, so let's still stay on security, or securing the lives and properties of Nigerians, and then fighting insecurity, but digress a little bit. And you recall recently the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Taoreed Lagbaja, kicked against amnesty for bandits and then terrorists in the country, and he said, and quote, amnesty programs instituted in many states had failed to achieve their purpose, so what that this must stop. Okay, So now I recall having a conversation with some ex-militant leaders, and then they said that when we were talking about, and there are also some political analysts who said that this amnesty program presidential amnesty, it has outlived its time, so you should stop immediately, and then stop using taxpayers' money to pay ex-militants, and then just help them furnish their lifestyle. And then the ex-militants came out to say, oh, they are going to bring down heavens if they stop, if no matter how the stipends that they're being given, if it's stopped, they will definitely bring down the heavens. So now you're having the Major General say that this amnesty must stop, whether for bandits or for ex-militants. We should cut that part. What happens if they decide to stop it? Would they decide to go back to the creeks?
Well, I don't know whether they will go back to the creeks. I don't speak for them.
But is that going to spell doom?
Well, it depends. It depends. I have to tell you that amnesty program has been mismanaged. The focus of it was not what was intentionally pursued. What that amnesty ought to, because you can't give out handouts indefinitely. At some point it will stop, because whether you like it or not, it will stop, because you may not have that economic, prowess to continue to sustain it. You can't continue to dish out money. What I had thought that amnesty ought to have done would have been to empower the people to be able to be self-independent, create their own job opportunities, in which they will hire other people, training people in trades that they can establish. Give them money. After you train them, you give them money. In fact, you follow them and open up that business to them, and you supervise those businesses to see how well they are doing. Because I know that at some point, some of them were even allowed to go have a trade, and some of the trades that they were involved in were just nonsensical. Nonsensical in the sense that you are talking about a country like Nigeria. How many aircraft do we have in Nigeria that you're sending people to go and learn how to be pilots, to come and fly whose plane? You're going to buy them aircraft to fly when they come back? I don't think that those are the kind of trades that amnesty ought to have engaged in. It ought to have been like, okay, you want farm, you do farming. They provide you all the seedlings, land, the equipment. Those who want to be mechanics, you train them to be professional mechanics. Buy equipment for them. There's this auto care company in America. That's all they do: sell spare parts, and they fix people's vehicle. And it's a multi-billion business. And so things like electrician, all those trades that people can acquire, and you help and build shop for them, and they work. They will be more independent. They're going to train them to be pilots in a country where there are very few aircraft. Nigeria does not have its own national carrier. Just to say that, okay, when after they are trained as pilots, you hire them to fly for Nigeria. If I am Allen Onyema, I am not required to hire you, because it's my private business. So I make my own personal decisions. The country cannot force me to hire you because you went through one amnesty program. Now, talking about the amnesty, I've heard talks about amnesty for bandits. You see, those who are pushing that narrative don't know what the heck they're talking about. I have seen them make comparison between bandits and the militants. These are completely two different groups.
How so?
The truth of the matter is that the militants, you know who they are. They have formidable groups and leaders. And so there are people you can negotiate with. And you know exactly what is their agitation. The agitation is, let us have some level of control over our resources. Very simple. They were not attacking their brothers and sisters. They were not burning down houses, kidnapping people and raping people.
But they were kidnapping.
They were kidnapping expatriates that worked in the oil sector that they perceived to be the perpetrators of the hardship in the Niger Delta.
But like I always say, evil is evil, whether black or white.
I agree with you, but there are lesser evils than the others.
Oh, really?
The bandits, what is the objective? What are they fighting for? I don't know. I have not come out with to know what is it that they are fighting for. They don't have any defined agenda. And who are the bandits? These are economic opportunists, criminals who are kidnapping people and asking their family members to bring hundreds of millions of naira raping women, burning down villages,
killing
innocent children and setting ablaze their farms and their houses. What is their goal? What's the objective? Other than pure economic criminals that must be dealt with, by the law. So I support what the chief of defense staff, so chief of army staff is saying. And if you look at the amnesty there has been amnesty in the Northwest. There was amnesty in Katsina State. There was amnesty in Zamfara. Both amnesty programs were complete and total failures. Because as soon as you give them that money, they use the money to go and acquire more and more weapons, and they return back to continue their illegal trade of, kidnapping people for ransom. So it's never going to stop. They don't have clear leaders. Is any group of people can just wake up one morning and become bandits and kidnap someone and ask for ransom. So it's not a solution to it. The solution to it is pure security measures put in place in those areas. It will be a disaster. It will be the most disastrous step to be taken by this country to go and negotiate with those criminals. And those who are comparing them with Niger Delta militants are comparing apples and oranges, because these two groups are completely different. These people were agitators who were agitating for increased participation in the control of the resources of the place that was devastating their environment, taking away from their land, and not putting enough back to the places where they were getting all these things. On the other hand, you have a bunch of criminals that run wide in the desert, kidnapping women and raping them and burning down houses and stealing cows and lambs and all that stuff. And you say you want to go and grant them amnesty. Anybody making that proposition, I believe, is on something.
So let me ask you again. Are you saying that this group are not criminals, while this other group are criminals?
Look, whether you like it or not, there is legitimate reason for people from the Niger Delta to agitate for more control of the resources from their place.
Did you say legitimate?
Very, very legitimate. In other countries where you have crude oil, the people control it. Their life is not the same as the life of the people in the Niger Delta. Go to Houston, Texas, where they have oil. Go to United Arab Emirates. Go to Saudi Arabia. Look at even Venezuela, that we think is in a mess. Go to all those places and compare their lives there with the life of the people in the Niger Delta. This country has lived off of Niger Delta for over 6 decades. And yet, if you go to those places, they have no roads, they have no electricity, they have no running water. Their hospitals and the health centers are nothing but shambles. And these are places that this country has made hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars, and yet they gave nothing back.
They're referred to as the golden, the goose that lays the golden egg.
Exactly. So there is a legitimate reason for such agitations.
All right.
Because it's madness that you take and you put nothing back in return.
Even as we begin to round up, because you talked about farmers, bandits, paying ransom and all, I recall a particular report that came forth on headline a few days ago, where it stated that bandits from Libya, from Mali, Niger Republic are beginning to terrorize our own farmers here and collecting a ransom from them. And then I just begin to wonder, in my mind, the first thought that came to my mind is that Nigerian parlance waiting consign agoro with overload. So how do we put this diplomatic, security and political solutions that you've preferred to solve that anomaly?
Those ones, you see, there is no silver bullet to all the problems in this country. Every part of this country has their own peculiar and unique challenge. The solution that works in the Southeast is not the same thing as the solution that will work in the Northwest or the Northeast.
Okay.
And so we have to identify the issues in the Northeast and the Northwest and adopt different strategies and solutions for those problems. One of it is that we must tighten our borders.
Okay.
So that we control, and that also will help in quelling problems in all the other parts of the country. all this proliferation of arms and light weapons into the country is something that must be checked.
But all those over 1 year that the borders were closed by the former administration, did it even do anything?
The borders that were closed are legal borders of entry. There are thousands of illegal crossings along those borders, and so we have to put some control measures to limit those illegal border crossings. Those where those things are coming in from. There are not very few things are coming in from the official border crossings. You know, areas that we have to build fence, we build fence. Areas that we have to do overflight with drones, we'll do that. Areas that we have to do patrol, we have to do patrol. But the thing is that we must secure our borders. I'm not calling for closure of borders. What I'm saying is secure them so that we know who is coming into our country, for what reason they are coming into our country, and for how long they are going to stay in our country. So you do that, you limit inflow of, you know, arms and light weapons into the country. There are only 3 ways you can have those, you know, weapons are washed in the country like it is right now. You see that they're flowing through the borders, or there are some factories here in Nigeria that are producing them. So you have to look for them and destroy those factories. Or our security agencies have turned rogue and they're giving their weapons to all these criminals to continue to commit all these atrocities.
Did you say all?
Some, not all. Of course, it's not going to be all. Some of them have turned rogue and begin to provide their weapons to criminals. Those are the only 3 means that you will have weapons are washed in the country like it is right now. And so you have to find them, those loopholes, and close them. That's one solution. Another solution is to fight them. You understand? That is why the idea of amnesty for bandits should be discouraged, because it's not going to work. It's not today that we know that those bandits are not mostly even Nigerians. They're mostly foreigners. Former governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, said it. He had to trace some of them back to Senegal. And so are you saying that we should go into, we should do amnesty for Senegalese criminals and Malian, you know, bandits and the terrorists that are coming here to terrorize our people? What are you going to negotiate with them for? What you do is to kill them. You fight them head on. If you make it costly for them to come to Nigeria and succeed, they will be discouraged. They will tell their brothers, don't venture into it because it's a very dangerous terrain for you to go in. And
like I asked the other time, I remember asking the same question, even though we are co-signees to the ICCPR and other human rights. So if you decide that, okay, they come in, they are terror to your country, just massive bombardment, kill all of them. At the other point, you recall that there's the human rights aspect to it.
So what is the human right of the people that they are killing? Okay, we should protect their own human rights when they are not protecting the human rights of their fellow citizens, that they are cutting off their head and chopping off their limbs. If they are carrying weapons, if you carry weapon, if you're carrying weapon, your human right is limited because you are a threat to security agents. If they want to protect your human right to come and catch you and take you to court, you kill them, right?
Because I recall the same governor that you talked about, that's Governor Nasir El-Rufai, also stated that when he wanted to do the massive bombardment in those forests where these criminals were staying, and then he made a statement about how some governors would definitely be charged to the International Criminal Court after their stay in office and all of that. So at some point that was the discussion around it.
These people are not, these are enemy combatants. You know, we have to designate them for who they are. They are enemy combatants to our country. So those human rights that they are talking about does not cover these people. These are people that have organized themselves, you know, to be an army that is invading our country from all directions and killing our people.
All right.
So if you can arrest them, you arrest them. But it's difficult to arrest them because they are armed. In the course of trying to arrest them, you lose your life. And so you have to fight them with every arsenal that is at your disposal.
All right.
You know, if you arrest and you can prosecute, do so. But where arrest is impossible and killing them will become inevitable, you have to do that.
Thank you so much, Captain Bishop Johnson, U.S. Army retired and national security and military strategist. It is always a pleasure having this talk with you.
Thank you for having me, and
awesome.
I appreciate this opportunity.
Awesome. All right, viewers, that's where we end this conversation. We have been chatting with Captain Bishop Johnson, who is a U.S. Army retired, and he is a national security and military strategist, I beg your pardon. And I'm sure you must have been rightly educated, entertained, and informed. Keep watching the conversation, because you never know who my next guest will be and what I will be speaking of next. Till I come your way again, wherever you are, whatever you do, ensure that you stay safe. My name is Annabelle Oji. God bless you and yours. God bless Nigeria.